Many of the people I speak to, many of the people we work with don't even want to stop in-person training completely. They just don't want to be at the whims of their client schedules for 30 to 40 training hours a week. Book titles, everybody says don't judge a book by its cover. And it's like, well, that's the reason that they have covers. Of course, you're going to fucking judge a book by its cover. We hire people based off of the 1% that makes us different, not the 99% that makes us the same. You need somebody who is a great human, who's always smiling, who's always on time, who's dependable, who's energetic, and who gives great fucking hugs.
Hello and welcome to Gym World Worldwide. I am your host, John Franklin, joined as always by my neighbor across the street, Mateo Lopez, the captain, and here with us today to talk about his new book, The Obvious Choice. It's the man, the myth, the legend. It's Coach John Goodman.
John, I like how your broadcaster voice came on the second you did the introduction to the show. Hey guys, what's going on? Hello and welcome to the Gym World Podcast. This is John Franklin, and I am here today. Hey, good to be back, guys.
Tell us about your book, John. What is The Obvious Choice?
Is it the obvious choice at the bookstore? Is it going to be the obvious choice to pick up?
Book titles, everybody says don't judge a book by its cover. And it's like, well, that's the reason that they have covers. Of course, you're going to fucking judge a book by its cover. Why else would a book have a cover? That's like marketing 101, is if somebody doesn't open the book.
There's a weird amount of my friends who buy wine bottles just based off of the label. Just how cool the art is. And that's it.
Is there like a secret to that? What makes a good book cover?
Well, think about the importance of that first off in terms of your gym, in terms of your whatever your program is. Like, yeah, the front face matters. Wherever that front face is, does actually matter. I mean, that's your marketing. What makes a good book cover? There's actually been a lot of studies on it. So one of the main things is contrast within the title. So the war of art, subtle art of not giving a fuck. Some sort of contrast in the title creates intrigue. It creates this sort of open loop in our minds. Obviously, benefits. What are you going to gain from reading this? Now, the problem that I always have with benefits in book titles is if you make the benefit of the book title too much of the book title, it just sort of starts to sound like everything else and doesn't mean anything, because there's only so many words that you can use that everybody else uses. Like, how many books have the word success on the cover, or profit, or whatever on the cover? And then the third is just, I think, clear and optimized for what you're trying to optimize. And so you'll see some covers are very design heavy, and the title and or the author's name is very small on the cover. Mine, we thought the title was very, very strong for two reasons. One is, who doesn't want to be the obvious choice? It's a business book. It's the obvious choice. There is that contrast in it. It's like, oh, this is obvious, but you're also telling me that there's a choice. But then the third is, there's kind of two meanings, right? Like, you can become the obvious choice, but this book is the obvious choice. So it kind of plays a trick in our brain. So number one, with the cover, what I wanted to do was make sure that from far away, or as a little thumbnail on a screen, the words, the obvious choice, smacked you right in the face. Everything else was secondary to me. Generally, what you'll see is authors who already have a huge author profile that's noticeable, like their name really jumps out. Like if you're like a Malcolm Gladwell, you'll see their name actually might even be bigger than the title.
Yeah, like a Dan Brown book. It's like Dan Brown, very big.
It's like at the top, right? Whereas newer authors, or like in my case, I'm not a newer author, but it's my first time traditionally publishing. And so my name is, at the bottom of the book, and then some sort of an image. And what I wanted to do with the image, they came to me, the cover designers, with very sort of obvious imagery. They wanted something like, oh, it's the obvious choice. Oh, we're all going to point to the center of a circle because it's obvious. And they had all these arrows going into the center of the circle to kind of like denote. It's like, oh, we're, all of these things are moving and they're all pointing to you. It's like, yeah, fine. Like, that to me, like somebody saying the word interesting, or somebody using the term metabolic. It's like, those are just kind of terms that we use because we're too lazy to figure out a better way to solve this problem that's more interesting and solves it more specifically. And so what I wanted to do with the image was grab your attention and also elicit like a little bit of greed. My buddy Charlie Hone, who's one of the best book marketers, I think, on the planet, we've spoken at length about it. And one of his strong contentions amongst books that sell 1 million plus copies is that very early on in the introduction and in the book, it elicits either greed and or fear very, very strongly. Those are just deep human core emotions, right? And so I wanted that dollar bill to be on the cover. It's the $100 bill, just kind of like, hey, this is how you make money. So I did want that. And then I wanted a portable story. Like how do you get somebody to talk about your thing? How do you create word of mouth? Well, you have to give them a story to talk about. You have to make it easy for them. Oh, what's this book about? Oh, it's kind of a book about like how to succeed in business without becoming famous on the internet. There's a difference between being an influencer and building a business. And if you play the wrong game, then you're going to get into trouble. It's like, it's a mouthful. It's hard to understand. You're probably not that interested. Whereas I can say, oh, whales and minnows, boom. Like whales and minnows is the final chapter. It's my life philosophy. I think it is a very good philosophy towards business in addition to life. And I think the whales and minnows analogy is a very sticky story that's portable, that allows people to pass along the book and talk about the book really easily. So I wanted to kind of bring all those things into the cover.
You said the word optimize quite a bit, and we're also kind of talking about marketing. We're talking about how to sell a book and what goes into it. And a lot of the book is about marketing. So what is the 5-step human optimized marketing system?
Yeah, acronyms. I love acronyms. So a lot of people these days are practicing what I call HAM marketing, human avoidance marketing. They're scared to talk to people. They think that they can just change the link in their bio and somehow people are going to know to buy and be interested in buying and pay that much attention to them that they're going to notice. Meanwhile, everybody is doing that same shit on their own account, hoping that people notice them. And you don't have to have been on the internet for very long to know that it doesn't work. And so HOMS is the opposite, human optimized marketing system. And it works backwards from who your ideal person is to try to create more of those types of people. And so it starts with, hey, what do I sell? Who is it for? How are they going to benefit? Where does that person exist? Like physically or on the internet? Like how tight of a bucket, where do they exist? Like literally, what stores do they go to? What people do they follow? And then the final step is the most important, which is, how can I talk to them today? Today. How can I talk to them today? So you work backwards from those steps and you start actually talking to humans. And it is incredible. And there's lots of examples in the book of different people who have followed this and like walking through literally how they do it. But it's like, oh, I've been posting content to the abyss for the last month and I'm hoping that it'll work. Versus, oh, I spoke to 5 humans today and 3 of them bought. It's nobody's going to be impressed that you don't know and don't care about. And so that's why I say a lot of what I talk about in this book is going to be bad for your ego, but good for your wallet. Because there's a lot of people out there these days that are rich with likes, but poor with dollars.
So if we're like, John, what do we do to grow Kilo? What are you telling us?
Well, as I know, software is one of those businesses that nobody wakes up in the morning and looks in the mirror and says, God, I really wish I had gym management software today. It's a tough business to grow, which is why B2B SaaS platforms are so valuable, is because the people who are able to grow them, they're very, very sticky. Generally, people who adopt a software platform don't leave, even if they're not happy with a software platform. They generally don't leave that software platform because the cost of switching is very, very high. And so the way to do it, I think, is a lot of what you guys are doing, man. It's pounding the pavement. It's one-on-one conversations. It's building very unique, very niched type content. Getting integrated with community leaders on a very personal scale and becoming their friends. Like, Matteo, we don't know each other as well. We met. But like,
We've hung out a couple times.
We've hung out a few times. But like, John, you and I talk pretty often. And, we spent a bit of time together too. And like, I consider you a friend. That is the best way to grow Kilo. Because when people ask me what gym management software should I use, I'll often recommend Kilo. You're not seeing that show up on a lot of your data. Maybe if you ask somebody and you say, how did you hear about us? 1 in 10 people that I tell about you are going to say, I heard it from John Goodman. Most people don't. Like, I don't. Like, if somebody says, how did you hear about us? Like, I'm not taking my time to fill out those surveys. But I think that's the best thing to do, is to understand the world that you're serving as tight as you possibly can. And who are the micro influencers, who are the leaders in that world, and how can you get to know them? Now, in your case, kind of by definition, your stuff is spread out across the world, really, particularly the United States and Canada, but really the world. Most businesses are not like yours. Most businesses, almost everybody we're speaking to here, their entire business, their entire world is spread out within give or take 5 miles of where they live. It's completely ridiculous to think that you have to impress the internet. It's so inefficient. It's so needlessly competitive. And also, it's much less profitable when you have to, even down to like, if you take a payment from somebody online via credit card versus if that same person comes in and pays you by check or cash or debit, or even a credit card when you're present with them and you hand them a terminal, you will be a few percentage points more profitable depending on which of those options you take.
And run through Kilo.
Well, that was the part I was kind of like, admittedly, I haven't finished the book. I got it last night and I'm not a very fast reader. John probably did because he's a fast reader. But that was the part I was like kind of surprised by. It seemed like so much of the early part of the book, you're like, I thought you were the sell personal training online guy. And the whole first part of the book was like, yo, the internet kind of sucks for selling. Don't do it. Get in a van. Go door to door.
I'm not saying that.
What's changed, John? What's going on?
Nothing's changed. And what's interesting is like, yes, I am the online training guy. I'm the online training guy because I believe that technology is a phenomenal way to scale a human's ability to be a human. Right? It's a way to remove humans out of the process where humans should not be in the process, to be able to optimize humans where humans should be in the process. That's the misconception. We're not removing ourselves, we're optimizing ourselves. The problem with conventional personal training, the way that most people do it in the gym, the problem that I set out to solve back in 2012 when I started building systems for online training was trainers a few years into their career, if they want to make this job a career, have a family and a life and travel and all of these things, need to figure out a way to make a bit more in a bit less time with a bit better schedule. Most of the time, the trainers that are successful in the gym are making enough money. Maybe they'd like to make more. Often they would. Of course, we all want to make more money, right? But what they really want is to be more in control of their schedule. Many of the people I speak to, many of the people we work with, don't even want to stop in-person training completely. They just don't want to be at the whims of their client schedules for 30 to 40 training hours a week, which means you're in the gym 60 to 75. Online training was something that I really championed as a way to take back control of your schedule. Now you can train 15 or 20 hours a week, the clients that you love whose schedule works for both of you, and then you can manage a healthy client load online and have a much better quality of life. And if you decide to travel for a while, you now have the systems developed to be able to take care of your in-person clients while you're away, for example. Right? So many of the people that we work with, even at the highest level, they still keep some clients in person. And many of the people that we work with, the vast majority of their marketing is actually done through mostly offline, behind the scenes ways. Now, I say offline, like basically not driven by what you would think of as social media influence, posting content to the abyss, ? Hopefully somebody will pay attention to me and then buy from me. It could be local initiatives. A lot of the time it is. For example, one of our students, Miles, is deeply involved in the Toronto dance bachata community in Toronto. Well, that is an uncommon commonality that he now shares because he's always been involved in dance. Joe Messina is another guy we worked with a lot of years ago, similar, right? Dance is a great market if you love dance. And so what these guys do those are their inroads, right? The interviews, the podcast, the people who they profile, the people they're networking with, the events that they go to, all have to do with the dance community, particularly the salsa bachata type dance community in and around Toronto and surrounding areas. Now, those people could hire trainers that are not dancers, of course, but we hire people based off of the 1% that makes us different, not the 99% that makes us the same. And so that's how they've kind of found their family. And so, Matteo, my answer to your question, coming back to it, is it's not about the internet or not the internet. In the book, what I talk about is you've got to fix what's inside your fence first. You've got to become famous to your family. Now, your family might be, like Greg Finch, an international surf community situated on different remote surf breaks around the world. Or your family might be local gardening aficionados that live within 3 miles of your home. Either way, you've got to become famous to your family, and you might, the best way to attack that might be to figure out a way to leverage media, right? Whether it's a podcast, whether it's social media. But how you use those platforms has to serve your goals, not the platform's goals. And that's the major differentiation that I want to make. The platform's goal is very clear. They want people to be on the platform as long as possible, as often as possible. They make money by selling ads. They make the most amount of money the longer you're on the platform, the more ads you consume. That's the simplest equation. And so all of the game that they're playing is to try to convince you that you want to be an influencer. It's the greatest magic trick of our times. These social media platforms have convinced millions upon millions of people to work for free or close to it in order to serve the whims of these platforms in the hope that magically it's going to turn into riches in some way, ego riches, financial riches, whatever. And most often, of course, it doesn't. Or even if it does, it's such a bad trade for the person creating the content. But the insights that they're going to show you are, of course, going to serve their goals. The metrics that they're going to show you are, of course, going to serve your goals. Jonah Berger, the Wharton marketing head, actually, I don't know if he's head, professor of marketing at Wharton, Jonah Berger, New York Times bestselling author of Contagious, said metrics are a spotlight. They shine light on whatever they're focused on. If you focus on the wrong metrics, i.e. the insights, the engagement metrics your social media platform is going to show you, you're going to be led astray. But you can use these things, and I give countless examples in the book, you can use these platforms in ways that serve your goals. That doesn't take up a lot of your time. You just won't become famous on that platform. You won't become an entertainer. I mean, I look at those terms as synonyms. You can be a creator, entertainer, influencer. It's all the same shit. And it's no different than going to Hollywood in the 1920s trying to become a starlet. Low odds of success, long time horizons, massive outsized rewards for a chosen few. And if you knowingly sign up for that, and you decide to go and wait tables in order to make ends meet and going to audition and audition and audition and audition, and you know that's the game you're playing, hell yeah, go for it. That's a noble game. But that's not the game that most people, I think, creating content on social media want to play. And so it's just a matter of figuring out what your game is and not conflating the games. That's as simple as it is. I got nothing against anybody. Companies got to make money, right? Social media companies got to make money. Of course they're going to do what serves their best interests.
Great answers all around. Love it.
Thank you.
Amazing.
You should consider writing a book.
To tip you back.
Yeah. Did you put this?
You should consider writing a book. Let me have some big gulp.
Hey gym owners, are you looking for a way to generate more leads, close more sales, and increase client retention? Introducing Kilo. We are a software company that gives gym owners the tools they need to increase revenue and run a successful gym. With Kilo, you get a beautifully designed website to capture more leads, an integrated marketing automation platform to increase sales, and our gym management software so you can add new client memberships, process payments, and organize your class schedule. If you're ready to upgrade your gym management software, book a call at usekilo.com.
Today's episode is sponsored by Jimmy John's.
Oh my God. Very long story, but many years ago, obviously before I met my wife, I traveled to Texas to meet a woman for a week. And we did a road trip from Fort Worth to Albuquerque to Roswell, back to Fort Worth in a day and a half, which is, for anybody who knows Texas, is an insane drive. So at like 3 o'clock in the morning, we're in the middle of the desert, in the middle of absolutely nowhere. There's like lightning behind us. And we just pull in to get more Red Bulls and coffees and crap that probably still is poisoning my system today, all these years later. And we stopped at this like roadside gas station. And, like hot dogs that have been spinning there for 2 weeks and Gatorades lining the shelves. And there's, of course, the worker there. And right in beside me is this Walmart truck that pulls in, the only other person there. And the guy comes out of there, like pulls up his, belt over his belly, right? And he walks in, says hi to the guy at the desk by his first name, goes and gets a hot dog, and he's walking in with his big gulp cup. He just goes and refills it, walks back out the door, says bye, and walks out. I was like, that was the most quintessential American experience I think I've ever had in my life.
Oh, he's using a reusable container. It's very eco-friendly. It's very good. I love it.
But what I don't understand about sizes in the United States, your mediums are like 20 ounces. Like your mediums are extra larges. It never makes sense. I mean, this mug must have been 30 ounces, this guy had. He's just filling up. I don't know what he was filling up with, some sort of soda. That's not even that big. That would
John's
be our large.
Small.
Like that would be our large, whatever you got there, John.
Yeah.
That's probably what, 16 ounces?
We're sized after our GDP,
It's a very passive-aggressive, combative statement. No, that's
Let's
fine.
Talk about
the only reason that our
skills.
sizes are bigger is because our country is worth so much more money than yours. No, that's fine.
Let's say a feeling I get a lot on the entrepreneurial journey is just like feeling stuck or like plateaued.
Yes. Right.
And so, you're dangling this carrot on this system, this way to think to get unstuck. Let's talk about it. How would I implement this in my life and in my business today?
Well, so let me take a step back. It's a very common misconception that the way to be more successful in your career or in life is to actually get better at the thing that you work at. Beyond a relatively low level of skill in almost every career, including fitness, very much including fitness, there is a pretty significant rate of diminishing returns as you gain more knowledge. Because what most people need in order to have success with a thing when they hire you to help them with a thing, i.e. transform their bodies, whatever, is actually a very low level of knowledge. Now, this isn't downplaying expertise. Obviously, more is better. All that I'm doing is calling out the fact that there's a very clear and distinct diminishing rate of return as you learn more about your thing. And so the mistake that a lot of people make is they continually learn to get better at the one thing that they work at, while ignoring a whole bunch of other complementary skills, what I call leapfrog skills. And when you do that, 1 + 1 = 2. It's a linear progression that becomes a less vertical line over time. Just the benefits of gaining more knowledge get less and less and less over time, like diminishing returns. The reason that we do it is because it's comfortable. It's very comfortable to get better at something we're already good at. It's very comfortable to listen to podcasts or to read books that reinforce things that we already know and maybe push us forward a little bit. But if you're honest, probably not that much. It just feels good to read about stuff that you already know about, right? It's easy. And so that's what we all naturally do more of. But what I discovered a number of years ago is that our value actually lies more in range. What you want, or you want to leapfrog when you're learning. If you're learning for professional development for more success, you actually want to leapfrog forward. You don't want linear progression. You want exponential. You want quantum leaps. And so you don't want 1 + 1 = 2. You want 1 + 1 + 1 = 10. And the way to do that is actually to build a mediocre to low skill set in a whole bunch of other complementary fields that are going to supplement your core knowledge in whatever you work at. And so what I do is I call those the leapfrog skills. Right? A few examples are behavioral psychology, writing. I think marketing is definitely one of them. Wealth management. Money skills. I thought back to my career. I don't remember the exact words I used in the book, but I thought back to my career and I was like, I was a medium to okay personal trainer. Admittedly, I had a degree in kinesiology, but I wrote Ignite the Fire when I was 24 years old. I could not have been a top tier personal trainer. Just by definition, people had been doing it for 20 more years than me. So even if they weren't working smart and I was working smart, still, they would have been better personal trainers than me. But what I also had in addition to that, by the time that I wrote that book, was I had a mediocre to low-level skill set of writing and of behavioral psychology. And what that did is it took me from being a just okay personal trainer to one of the most successful personal trainers around. And what I find very interesting about that was that in any of those individual fields, I would have been mediocre to low level. But combined, their effects were exponential. And so over time, what I started to do was I started to identify more of these complementary leapfrog skills. And I started to add them in. And I did that through a series of what I call leapfrog learning. Because I realized that I basically needed the 80-20 of that skill set, right? I didn't need to be top tier in that. I needed to be mediocre to low level. And so I gave myself 60 days for each skill. And I wasn't always in a learning period. I'm not always in a learning period, but I gave myself 60 days for each skill to aggressively pursue that skill and basically put everything else that I was doing on autopilot. For example, I wanted to build my family's wealth management philosophy. How do we think about money, right? Because I didn't want to be influenced by the insanity of whatever idiotic crypto market thing is going on that people pay attention to because they're so bored not to pay attention to it. I didn't want to be affected by that. I want to be much more logical with my approach. And I want to do things with my family's best interests in mind. And that might mean not optimizing for making the most amount of money. In fact, it doesn't, in my case. And so over the course of 60 days in 2020, I read 7 different books. First, a few books on basically how money works. So the history of the monetary systems in the United States. It's nothing about Canada, but the history of the monetary systems in the United States. Basically, what is money? Like how does it work? Same thing with the stock market. Okay, cool. Now I understand the basics of that, right? I can speak that language. And then I started reading a little, as much as I could find about the psychology of money, about the psychology of how we look at money. So Morgan Housel, of course, wrote the book Psychology of Money. There's a few others like it. And then I went out and searched for as much as I could find where people who work in the money field, investment advisors, mortgage brokers, whatever, provided honest accounts, not of what they suggest others to do, but of what they themselves do with their own money for their own families. And what I identified there was that it was radically different. There's something like 78% of all mutual fund advisors don't invest in their own mutual funds. And it's not to say their mutual funds are bad investments. It just doesn't fit their own philosophy. Right? And so I took all of this information in. Allison and I had a number of conversations about it. She was reading some of it and watching some videos and listening to podcasts and stuff too. She learns differently than me. I learn through reading. She learns through listening and watching it. And we came together and we had conversations about it. And then the most important thing, right? Because if you really want to learn something, you don't listen, you don't read, right? You don't even do that thing. If you really, really want to learn something, you teach that thing. At the bottom of the learning pyramid, you teach it. And so when this was all said and done, I went and prepared a presentation that laid out the 4 pillars of my personal wealth philosophy. And I presented that presentation first to my mentorship, and then we put it up on my podcast. That has helped me be so level-headed with my philosophy towards wealth. I mean, we can get into money more, but we've done really, really well. But more than anything else, we've just been very logical about our moves. There hasn't been anything emotional, radical. We're hedged against all disasters. I mean, for me, a lot of it is just disaster protection. I don't want to be taken out of the game, and I'm willing to risk potential upside for more security for my family. Again, that's me, right? Other people want to take more risk. I did the same thing with artificial intelligence. I wanted to really gain an understanding of how artificial intelligence could potentially redefine job roles in the future, particularly specific to coaching and service-based companies. And so I did the same thing. 60 days. I read 9 books. At that point, it was every book that was written on artificial intelligence and job displacement. This is like 2021. I could not read every book now, of course. But when that was done, I created a massive Google Doc with all of my thoughts and findings. And I shared it with a bunch of my colleagues. And a few of them even wrote about it. Sharad, he's on the board now for Trainerize, but started Trainerize. It was one of the people I shared it with. He wrote a long Medium article about that document, about what he agreed with, what he didn't agree with. There's Leapfrog skills, and then there's Leapfrog learning. And I look at my development as just a process of incrementally going through these periods of 60-day Leapfrog skill acquisition. And each time I do it, I just get exponentially better. And at the end of each period, I'm teaching.
And what do you think are the important ones for like a brick and mortar gym owner who's got like a 2,800 square foot space? They make like 20 grand in revenue, and they're trying to make like 50 grand in revenue. What's their next 60-day period?
It would probably be different depending on who they are. You guys know that market way better than I do. I would guess understanding money would be really important. I would guess that most brick and mortar studio owners have a lot of leaks, money leaks. They have not done a very good job negotiating things like contracts, expenses. They could probably renegotiate. They aren't doing a very good job budgeting, and or when they take in money, figuring out how to invest that money. So I would think that money would be a big one. Probably for them, the skill set of managing would be big too. Like, how can you empower people? Like, if you hire somebody really good, I mean, this is something that I've realized, Matteo, in the last 2 years. I shifted, John, you and I have spoken about this, not for a while. I shifted the majority, almost everybody who works for us is on almost 100%, often with like guarantees, but almost 100% profit share or commission-based payment structures. And it's been wonderful. Because what that's done is that has very quickly and efficiently eliminated people who are not contributing to the real bottom line and to the success of the business. Now, when I say profit sharing and commission structures, this is not just the sales team. Our coaching team, of course, gets paid for when they coach. But the reason that the people who coach for us in our mentorship make 2 to 4 times what other coaches and other mentorships make is because they have huge incentives if their clients are successful, if their clients renew. They have huge incentives. If the people, our success coaches, for example, in our mentorship, if their people show up to their calls, they get bonuses. If their people hit their guarantee, because we have a guarantee for people who join the program, right? They get bonuses. If their people renew, they get bonuses. It's so heavily skewed towards that it reinforces all of the things that really drive our business. But also, really what drives our business is people having success that work with our business. And it was the same thing. I brought somebody on to help me with the book launch for The Obvious Choice. And this guy's a stud, one of the best people I've ever worked with. And so I talk about hiring in the book too. And I talk about the same, I mean, to me, it's the same approach. How you hire, how you generate referrals, how you get customers is actually the same basic principle, which is people who buy lots, people who don't. For the most part, people don't change. And so what you do is you actually work backwards from a place where somebody is already exhibiting the behavior you want to happen in your business or in your life. And you basically just bring them in to you, right? And so I paid attention to other book launches for about a year before mine. Big book launches. And one of them was executed really, really well. You wouldn't really notice it unless you were really studying it, but I was like, this is dialed in, man. And I worked backwards and I was like, who's behind that? I'm going to pay them whatever they ask. And I'm going to bring them in. The person behind that just finished high school. He's in first year university right now. I am paying him more than his professors make. And I'm not the only one working with him. And so when he told me how much he wanted to be paid, it was like, this is insane. This kid is 18 years old, right? But he's already exhibited that he could do this at the highest level. And I've worked with enough marketers, particularly people involved in books, to know that most of them have their foot so far shoved up their fucking asses that they're not even worth $200 a month, let alone $2,000 or $20,000. What I realized is that there is a very significant power law distribution when you work with people. A really stellar person is worth easily 5 to 10 times more than somebody who is just okay to pretty good. And so if you can find that person, it's worth paying them or figuring out a way to pay them way more. So what I said to him is, he told me how much he wanted to be paid. And I said, tell you what I would rather do is this. I'd rather pay you this lower amount guaranteed every month. And basically, like, let's do a contract for 4 months with an opt-out on either side after month 1 if we don't like each other. We've already passed that, but like, okay. For 4 months, because he started in October, he's going to the end of January, right? And then we'll continue afterwards, right? We'll reassess afterwards. But for 4 months, I'm going to pay you less. But here's our low, medium, and high goals for how many books we're going to sell based off of pre-orders and first week sales. And then here's how many reviews I want to hit within 5 months of the book coming out on Amazon. If we hit our low end goal, I will give you a bonus that brings you up to exactly what you wanted to earn, right? So I'm going to give you a huge bonus, like a lot of money, that's going to bring you up to what you told me you wanted to earn. If we hit our middle goal, I'm going to give you an even bigger bonus. And if we hit our high end goal, you're getting a massive bonus, way more than what you asked for, right? Because all that I wanted to do was, I want to incentivize you to overperform. I'm not willing to pay you even what you ask for if you don't perform. And so how can I build that structure? And then in addition to that, there's an additional bonus that's going to kick in once we hit this number of reviews, so long as it comes in before 5 months after the book comes out, whether or not we're working together. And so that's what I'm always trying to do when it comes to hiring people. And I think a lot of gym owners, Matteo, can really benefit from just more intelligent ways to manage and hire and incentivize their people, and to just find stellar people who are already exhibiting the skills that they really need to make their gym thrive without them. Like, you don't need somebody who's good at programming to coach your group fitness class. You need somebody who is a great human, who's always smiling, who's always on time, who's dependable, who's energetic, and who gives great fucking hugs. That's what you need. So what skill are you hiring for? Where can you go and find that person? And when you do, if you find the right person, can you figure out a way to incentivize them such that their core needs are always looked after, but if they perform at the way that you want them to perform, that will bring your business to the next level, they're going to make so much more money than the industry average that A, they're not leaving, they've got ownership, they've got upside, and you don't need to worry about them. You don't need to manage them.
Cool. So yeah, so like, I guess another way of asking it is like, do gym owners need to worry about learning how to copyright? Do they need to know how to like use Facebook ads?
I mean, Facebook ads, no. I mean, the reason for that is there are there are skills that are easily hire outable. You know what I'm saying? Like Facebook, particularly Facebook ads now. The AI built in to the meta ad engine is so powerful. It's not a high level skill set anymore. What is really important when it comes to paid these days is actually, what are you doing after somebody responds to your ad? How are you communicating to them? How are you moving them along the process? How are you following up with them? Follow-up's 80% of it, bro.
Yes.
How are you following
up with them? And now we're back
to
what you said before, which we need the right team in place to make sure
for years
when you do get the lead.
And then what's your offer like, right? How are you keeping them in your gym? So how can you build higher lifetime value? How can you build higher conversions outside of it? So no, I mean, you can easily hire somebody or, whatever. When people are like, oh, I hired an agency or I hired a VA and they weren't good. It's like, nah, they were probably fine. You probably just did a really shit job helping them figure out how to serve your business. Like that's your fault. That's probably not their fault. They're probably good enough at being a VA or an ads manager. You just didn't do the other stuff to give them what they need to succeed. Ask me how I know.
How do you know?
I've got a graveyard of people, bro, that I've worked with over the years that I have not given what they needed to succeed within an organization. Like, this all comes out of pain and learnings. And so ads, no. Copywriting, I mean, what's copywriting? Copywriting is storytelling. Copywriting is writing. I think writing is one of, if not is the most valuable skill any human being can learn. I think the ability to communicate effectively, persuasively, simply, in an asynchronous manner is one of, if not the most valuable skill to learn on the planet. Copywriting is not writing a Facebook ad, is not writing a social media post. Copywriting is communicating simply and clearly within a text message as you're following up with a client, asking how their day is or why they haven't been in that week. Copywriting is sending an email recap about the charity event that you did for your gym. That's copywriting. Copywriting the way that most people think about it, like I have to write advertisements or I have to write better social media posts. It's hard because if you really love those things, sure. I mean, I've read all those books because I was obsessed with writing and advertising for years and years and years. But I don't think copywriting is the answer. I think learning how to write simply is the answer. And so what I say, the leapfrog skill that I recommend in the obvious choice to learn is the art of business writing. I was very specific with that. It's not advertising. It's not copywriting. It's not storytelling. It's business writing. What's business writing? Write simply, get to the point, always have an actionable takeaway or a next step. That's the 80-20.
So what is the next step, John? Where are people going if they want to learn more about what you got going on and the obvious choice? What is the obvious step?
The obvious step is to go and buy the obvious choice book, however you want to buy it, I think hardcover books are great, but it's available on audio and Kindle, whatever you like, but that's the obvious next step, man. I put my heart and soul into that book, dude. This has been 3 years of my life. If anybody listening to this, if you've ever bought anything for me or consumed anything for me in the past, I mean, first of all, thank you. Second, I'm actually a little bit embarrassed because this next book, The Obvious Choice, is not even in a different league. It's in a different universe. Like, you know how you do something that's just so much better than anything you've ever done before, to the point where you look back at what you did before and you're like, I don't even know who that person was that did that thing. That's what this book is for me. It's a new level, man. I'm excited for people to see it.
And Mateo, what's the obvious step for people who got value out of Goodman's obvious business tips?
Give us a like, give us a subscribe, but more importantly, go to usekilo.com, book your sales call today.
You should do that
to find out how you can make your business run smoother with our amazing gym management software and make more money and travel the world, like John Goodman said all his personal training clients do. They just travel the world now, and it's great. That's the next choice, the obvious step, the obvious choice. There you go.
And if you don't, Mateo is going to get in the van, and he's going to come to your door, and he's going to talk to you. He's going to have a conversation. He's going to sit you down.
I saw the van too. It's one of those white unmarked ones. It's got a little rust around the edges. I don't even know where you got
that's
those.
it.
We're a bootstrap company, so we haven't gotten the book promotion deal from Goodman yet. We still got to save money where we can, So we needed the used candy van.
And if you want to know why we keep mentioning
You
vans,
got it at a
listener,
police option.
you gotta buy the book. You gotta buy the book to know where all this van talk is coming from.
Yes. There's some talk about a van and the value of having a van. Probably not for gym owners, but maybe.
Well, gym owners, this has been lovely. Always a good time when John Goodman comes on the show. And go buy the book. It's awesome.
If you own a gym, buy one for all your staff, to be honest.
Yeah.
If even one of your staff members puts anything in the book into action, it's going to pay for all of the books and more. That's the thing that I think people don't realize about professional development for their staff. Most of the time it's going to be a waste of money. But if one time one person takes action on one of the things, it's actually a great use of money. It can be hard to measure that, though, of course.
As the best things in life are. Well, Mr. Goodman,
Yes,
happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
It won't be your birthday when we publish this, but
It's fine.
Thanks for spending your time in the best Riverside room on earth, Gym World Worldwide.
Love it. Thank you, guys.